What's up, wrestling world? This is Andy Perez with 411mania.com. Thank you so much for coming back and joining us once again for Dissecting Dynamite. We took just a little bit of a break there for, 2, 3, 4 weeks, who knows. It was WrestleMania season. You gotta let yourself breathe or else the pure amount of wrestling will just, it'll make you hate wrestling. So we did what we had to do, but now we are back here with another episode of Dissecting Dynamite to help us break down this episode of AEW Dynamite. Of course, we had Anthony Ogogo's in-ring debut. We had Kris Statlander coming back. We had Red Velvet versus Jade Cargill. We had Chris Jericho versus Dax Harwood, not Hardwood. Made that mistake before. With Special Enforcer Mike Tyson. Falls Count Anywhere match for the TNT title. And then we had a tag team title match kicking off the night. Let's kick off our night here at Dissecting Dynamite with our co-host this evening. You know him, you love him, 411's own Blake Lovell. Let's Blake, there you are. I was afraid we'd have some technical issues, but here you are, just as wonderful as ever. How you doing, my friend?
Yes, doing well, Andy. Good to talk to you as always. Yeah, been a little bit of a break. We had to check in, make sure everything was going well with each other, but then we got to sit back and watch a couple of hours of action-packed wrestling, I think, to say the least, on this episode.
Most certainly action-packed, and the action starts right off the bat. We had the Young Bucks with a bit of a promo prefacing the action that we had, explaining their horrid actions last week. Unfortunately, we weren't here to cover it, but in case you missed it, they turned on their random partnership with Jon Moxley to team up with the lifelong friend Kenny Omega. Who would have guessed it? But in all seriousness, the old Young Bucks are back, acting a bit heelish. Let us know at home, what did you think of the Young Bucks' turn last week, and what did you think of this opener? And yeah, quite an opener. Pac and Rey Fenix versus the Young Bucks. Blake, what do you think about this one, and what do you think about the direction the Young Bucks have been going?
Yeah, it was the equivalent of, I guess, a nice energy drink. That's how I would probably put it when you just talk about the energy and the action in this one. It was impressive, and that's what we say all the time when we do this. Rey Fenix, he's just on another level, right? Like, he does things that I don't think anyone else can do, like, on the planet, like, not just in AEW. Like, I don't think anyone can do what this guy does. So I thought he was really impressive here. Once again, no surprise. When you look at all the different things he can do inside the ring, outside the ring, he was just terrific. And I thought he was sort of the star of the show here. But that's, of course, Andy, not to take away from anyone else in this match, because it was one that you knew what you were getting, right? Action, action, action. Like, that's what you were going to get for 20 minutes. That's what you got. And it was a lot of fun. Like, this is sort of that traditional AEW opener that we're so used to on these shows, where you just have all this action, crazy spots, like, it's just insanity. And then, you have the Young Bucks added in to playing this new sort of heel role. And I think it's one that, for some people, may take a little bit to get used to. You kind of want to see where the story goes. But I think overall, they did really well in this match of kind of playing up some of those tendencies and such. And then, as we'll get to later on, you and I had a nice little laugh about one of the backstage segments they did, and drawing some parallels to another popular heel wrestler of the past. So this was a lot of fun, but I think we knew going in, like, it was going to be good, and it really was.
Yeah, most definitely a pay-per-view level opener here. You equated it to an energy drink. I'd equate it to like an IV, because it took like 30 minutes to disperse throughout your body, But yeah, the Young Bucks coming out with new outfits, trading their tassels for like these gypsy jewels across their forehead or something like that. And then, of course, coming out with human cow dung himself, Don Callis, showing the true transition to pure, unadulterated evil that we're seeing here. A bit of meta storyline, meta storytelling rather, kind of throughout the match. Of course, us as a fans, we know that the babyface tag team is always facing hard cam.
Yeah.
And Matt Jackson was used to that being his corner, so he went there for the tag. Obviously, the tag wasn't there. Obviously, showing that they're still trying to find their footing in the current incarnation of themselves right now. Some innovative tag team work by the by two of the Death Triangle here, in the spot where they're like holding Matt Jackson's leg, passing it back and forth while the other one just goes and kicks. And then just a crazy third act to this match, as it usually is between tag teams like these two. From the Rey Fenix hot tag to the rope walk, kick going into that delayed German suplex by Pac, rebound Canadian destroyers, double poison ranas on the outside, and then of course it ending with Rey Fenix getting his mask snatched away, which I swear has happened like 13 times since the start of Dynamite a year and a half ago, but nonetheless leading to a double super kick, and that put the Death Triangle away. Now, people are often suggesting that good guys, or that bad guys rather, shouldn't be doing these like awe-inspiring moves that the Young Bucks often pull off, but the Young Bucks do them while still exuding just like this dickish, punchable
Yeah.
aura. What would you say to these people that are say, oh, these baby faces, they can't do these crowd pleasing moves, stuff like that?
Well, like, I mean, I think I mean, we're not in the 80s anymore,
Mhm.
right? Like, it's not headlocks and, that kind of stuff, like to be able to draw the heat and, really just sort of do those kind of things, or, not necessarily poking anyone's eyes and all this other stuff. I mean, you can. We saw Matt Jackson in this match, actually. Wasn't it the spot where I think he went for the flip and he acted like he was going to do some impressive move in the corner, and then he just went over and raked the back of whoever it was. I can't remember if it was Pac or Phoenix, but I thought that was really fun because it was kind of like an old school type heel maneuver. But that's the thing is, these guys. I don't think it has anything to do with that. Like when it comes to the move stuff, like it's all about mannerisms, about characters and that kind of stuff. In the ring, again, like it's a much different era now. Where do you want the Young Bucks to go out and wrestle and use headlocks and arm scrapes and back twists and all this? Like you don't. Like you want to see them for what they're good at, and that's doing all of this aerial and crazy acrobatic stuff, even if they're heels. So. I think that's what I would say is like, I mean, do you want them? That's what we watch them for, like, right? That's one of the most spectacular parts of them is for their matches. And I think, just trying to take them down a notch just because they're heels and wanting them to do more methodical type stuff. That's never been their style, heel or face. And I think that's kind of the way they are. So
That's the thing. They have those mannerisms. They have that attitude, and they're just stacking
yeah,
on top of that. Like you said, the spot where he did the springboard back rake.
yeah,
There was a spot near the beginning where Rey Fenix and Nick Jackson put on an acrobatic display, and then Nick Jackson, rather than adding a flourish, he follows it up with a clothesline. Very heelish move there. Double power bomb on the apron to the outside. So yeah, lots of like new additions to their game that we're seeing here as they're bringing out this new heelish side to the Young Bucks, and of course pointing to the Dior soles on the boot. Of course. Yeah, just putting on a display of how to maintain that energetic opening match style while still including a bit of those heelish mannerisms into their game. So yeah, I really really enjoyed this opener, and it looks like we may have passed over a bit of a promo that prefaced one of the main events tonight with Mike Tyson's involvement. We had MJF and Mike Tyson with a bit of a promo at the beginning here. Just classic MJF. MJF makes fun of Mike Tyson's face tattoo, offers him a check to, I guess, interfere in the match later on in the night. And Mike Tyson just rips up that check and eats it. Mike Tyson, whether he's in a playful role or not, he is a scary, scary man. And seeing him up against MJF here was just delicious to watch. What do you think about this?
yeah, that's what I think is just what a combination, right? When you have these two in there, two guys that just I mean, exude, personality and charisma. And I think having them together was a perfect way, I thought, really, to start the whole thing. Is just to, because it is such an interesting dynamic when you think about it, right? We look at MJF as sort of the guy that's played the ultimate heel, and so has Tyson before, right?
Mhm.
Like he's not now, but like that's kind of what people know him for. So, yeah, I thought it was really fun to kind of have those two together. Always entertaining when MJF's in there, but when you put him in there with Mike Tyson, that gives you a different dynamic, doesn't it? So
Yeah, most definitely. And if you're watching at home, make sure you drop a comment in the chat. Let us know what you thought about Mike Tyson's involvement in this episode of AEW Dynamite. But we're going from one athletic specimen in Mr. Mike Tyson to another in Miss Jade Cargill, facing off against Red Velvet. Now, this match starts off hot. A lot of animosity between these two. Jade, of course, has been torturing Red Velvet for months. She's been torturing Red Velvet ever since it was
yeah,
supposed to be Brandy in Red Velvet's role, for God's sake. So it's been a wild it's been a while now. But yeah, Jade. I feel like Jade before this has already beaten Red Velvet in singles action, if I'm not mistaken. In addition to pinning Red Velvet in the tag match with Shaq. So I'm not sure what Jade still has to prove here in this scenario, but she is impressive again, nonetheless. We haven't seen much of Jade Cargill still, and she is still super, super early in her wrestling career. But what have you thought about her progress up to this point?
yeah. I mean, that's what we've always talked about with her. Like even in the first time she stepped on stage, right? We just said she had a presence, and
Mhm.
I think that's the biggest thing. The wrestling part will get there. Like the more she's in the ring, it'll get there. And we've said that a lot with people in the past too. And I think that's the thing is, this isn't. You have to judge people differently based on where they are in their careers. I think. You have to for someone like that who, as we know, is kind of newer. Certainly for this platform, right? Like
Mhm.
to be on this stage on, in AEW on TNT and immediately throw her into this role with Shaq, and she's in this big, program with Cody and all this other stuff. I think she's really handled it really well. I mean, what you tell me what you think, but I think just again, you place anyone into that role, like there's pressure immediately, like right off the bat. There's a lot of pressure that goes with that. And so I think that she's handled it really well in terms of what she's done. And that's what I said. The wrestling part will come as she has more matches. Ask anybody who had their, go back and watch some of these people's first matches. Like you could ask a lot of people and be like, were you happy with their first one? What about your second one or your third one? I just think she's been really good from a charismatic standpoint. Obviously, we've talked about it. She has the look. She's got all the tools. I think it's just as the matches you get more under your belt, she'll keep getting better. But I thought this was another another step in the right direction. I thought just based on how this match played out. So
Yeah, I completely agree. At this point, I feel like Jade Cargill is, I mean, she's undeniable. We're what 3 or 4
yeah,
matches into her professional career.
yeah, this was her best match thus far. I think just in
Oh
terms of
yeah.
just again because remember she's on her own, right? Like it's a singles match. Like you're not leaning on anything else. Like you're out there under the spotlight in a one-on-one match. There's no, you're not on the ropes pausing in a tag match or anything like that. So I thought that was a big part of it too. And I think she again handled it really, really well. So
Right, and just I mean, like her power alone is enough to draw in. I feel
yep,
like a casual viewer. Just putting myself in that headspace, flipping the channels, and seeing this Goliath of a woman just press slam Red Velvet, fall away
yeah,
slam into the crowd.
yes, that was
That
something.
delayed vertical suplex. I mean, it's extremely impressive to watch. But on top of that, just her skill and understanding, and like you said, her presence, her charisma. She came to the game ready, and a lot of people were critical of her from the start, and I'm sure I was too, just because of the storyline that she was involved in to begin with, the ordeal with Shaq. And you get to
Yeah.
the point where she does have her match with Shaq, and everything exceeds expectations, and she's just continued that pattern up to this point. I mean, where she is right now, she's already a force of nature within AEW. How long until she's this force of nature within the entire wrestling world? In my opinion, I mean, I personally owe an apology to the entire women's division at this point. I mean, I want to lay past comments to rest. We've been critical in the past of the women's division,
Yes, we have.
just because AEW wasn't giving women the role that they needed in order to continue succeeding, in order to build this division to what it needed to be. But even in the past month, I mean, look at what we missed. Even just that Britt Baker and Thunder Rosa match,
Right.
in the women's tournament that preceded that, and now up to this point, we're building to Ty Conti versus Sheeta next week. We have Thunder Rosa throwing her name into the hat. We have Britt Baker cutting promos tonight, showing that she's working her way to the top, making sure she gets those wins on AEW Dark Elevation.
Kris Statlander's back.
Exactly, but
Yeah,
so many different threads to hold on to in the AEW women's division right now. What do you think of the current state of this division? And when you're looking at all of the storylines that are playing out right now, what are you really sinking your teeth into in the AEW women's division?
Yeah, well, that's funny, isn't it? Like, we actually have some to choose from.
Right.
Like, it's not just one, right? It's not just one like it was for a long time there, where you knew you would get your, 10-minute segment at whatever, 9:30 or whatever, or 8:30, whatever, and that was it. We've got so much more than that now. And so, there's so much happening, like you said. I think it's going to be interesting next week because you've got that match, and you and I were talking as the show was going on, and we're like, okay, what are some scenarios you see here? Because, Conti is just like, you said it, like you and I were talking, like she's got all this full force momentum behind her.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, if she loses that clean, then what, right? And so I think my guess is, and even though I think we'll talk about this a little bit later on with the main event, but you don't want, I think this is what has separated AEW apart whenever you talk about run-ins and all this other stuff and matches and all that. But I feel like there has to be something along that lines, probably with this match next week, whether it's Nyla, whether, Britt Baker, I don't know. I just think there's probably going to be some different scenarios you could play with. But that's the thing, and you said it, there's just so many different women that have sort of elevated themselves, and AEW Dark Elevation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Cheap plug, but I think that's kind of what we've seen is there's so many different ones like that have elevated themselves to where you could see Britt Baker, you could see Thunder Rosa, you could see all those others, like we said, Statlander probably not going to be there right away because she just came back, but she'll be a factor, like we know that. Anna Jay, we know she's out for a while, but when she comes back, she'll be right back in the mix. But these are, Red Velvet and Jade, right? Like we just talked about those two. Like think about how many they have to choose from now.
Right.
And they're not just people that are, coming up anymore. Like they're ones that have actually proven that they can be on that level they need to be on. So I think that's certainly a plus for them. And I think it just gives them so many different options to work with. So I'm very intrigued by that match next week.
Most definitely, as am I. And you mentioned Kris Statlander. Why don't we go ahead and jump ahead a bit to her return match? It was just last week where she re-debuted as part of the Best Friends, putting her in in a featured role. And great crowd reaction last week when she popped up inside of the arcade machine as well. But Kris earns a decisive victory, and also shows some progress with the storyline with the Best Friends. They continue building out their group. But in addition to that, we have Miro on the other side of things, and Miro cut a promo tonight, basically saying, "Kip, I'm moving on with or without you, and I recommend you stay the hell out of my way." Does this mark the end of Miro and Kip? Are we going to get a payoff to the Miro and Kip storyline, or do you foresee Miro just trailblazing ahead? Because from the looks of it, Miro is on his own now.
We can only hope it marks the end of the Miro Kip Sabian duo. Listen, I got nothing against Kip. I got nothing against Penelope. They seem like great people and a great couple. But we said it from the beginning. Miro is a guy that we see on that level of someone that should be in there battling with Lance Archer or Brian Cage or all these other guys. Like that's what we want to see with him, right? And think about how long sort of that holding pattern has been for him. Like it's been a while now. Like when you really think about it, it's like this guy's actually been there a while. And I feel like we haven't even, but that's a good thing too. Like we haven't even scratched the surface with what he's capable of and the different matches that you've been wanting to see. So I feel like it was something that, yes, I thought it dragged on a little bit too long. But now I think is where you start to see, which we've seen in some of the matches recently. Like we've said, I mean, he's clearly been the star of some of these matches. But now I think is when you start to see, okay, what's next for him? We're very intrigued because we want to know, who is it? Like who's next? Like there are so many different possibilities you can go to. And so I think that makes it interesting, even, and you can kind of, I don't know, you can sort of get some of that back from maybe feeling like this last thing ran too long, to where you at least know you have something to look forward to with some of the stuff he's going to have in the works. So I'm very curious to see kind of what they do next with him. But yes, I hope for all parties involved. I hope that Miro is ready to trailblaze on his own now here moving forward. So
yeah, I couldn't agree more. I'm excited to see what this new iteration of Miro has in store for AEW. But moving on from one questionable storyline to another questionable storyline, the Nightmare Factory. We weren't here. We weren't here to cover the tragic turn of QT Marshall and the downfall of Cody Rhodes. But we've had a break within the within the Nightmare family. We have Cody and friends on one side. We have QT along with his caveman and who all does QT have in his group? I'm even having trouble visualizing them right now.
The caveman, of course, everyone knows is Nick Comoroto.
Exactly.
That's an easy one. I don't think people were associating the caveman with Aaron Solo. But yes, you've got Nick Comoroto, Aaron Solo. You've got Anthony Ogogo, of course, and QT. And is that it? Is that the whole group, or is there more?
I'd say that's a solid team right there. But we have we have Anthony Ogogo here showing off his chops with the debut.
Not the caveman.
Not the caveman. Caveman was in the background though. You could have been distracted by his A-Train like chest. I've taken a few weeks off.
I don't know why. Guys. It just cracked me up because, I mean, look, you're not the only one thinking that, right? When you see Comoroto come out here, it's just like, and that's what I said. Like this guy, when he started on Dark, I'm like, if this guy isn't the most natural heel, like literally the most natural heel, like ever, like this guy has the full look that you need. I'm glad they quickly turned him because I was like, I'm not buying this guy as a babyface. So this is perfect. This is great. So.
Oh my gosh! And speaking of natural heel, this match ends practically before it starts. We have a massive body shot by Olympic medalist Anthony Ogogo, ending the match very, very quickly, taking the wind right out of this poor 7-month-old wrestler that. But yeah, quite the debut.
Not
here.
A caveman.
Yeah, not a caveman. Quite the debut here. We really don't see endings like this. It really struck me as unique, and I think it depending on what Anthony Ogogo does moving forward, this could stand out as one of the most interesting debuts that we've ever seen here in AEW. When you're looking at Anthony Ogogo, what kind of future do you see in store for this guy? Because from the looks of it, they're painting him as flat out legit.
Yeah, I mean, he did the commentary on Dark for a while. Very charismatic. Certainly has a personality. I think people kind of knew that already from his boxing background, but I thought it was different. And like you said, it was unique. And I think what I thought was pretty unique about it was, in that scenario, what would most companies do? It would be a shot to the face, right? Mm-hmm. Like he would throw a punch to the face, knock the guy out. That's your it. But like it's just to the midsection, like not even to the face. Like he knocked the guy out, punching him in the midsection. Like, and I think that was a pretty important point because, like, that shows even more. I think you're putting him over even more by saying, okay, he's not just another guy that can punch someone in the face and knock him out. He punches a guy in the midsection, and the guy can't continue.
Right.
So I think that was a really cool little, like, again, that's sort of those little things that really make a big difference. And I thought they did a really good job with that. Now it's just a matter of, how do you move forward with this? And how long do you go with this with him? Like, do you put him out there every week doing stuff like this? Because I think I don't know, like, I feel like that's something to where they obviously have something in mind. That's what we always say with AEW. There at least is a picture there, like they have a plan. But I thought it was. I really liked that little tidbit, and I thought it added a lot just to that, 1 minute that he was in there. So
yeah, and it really burns. It really burns the severity of those punches into your brain, because last week you see him take out Cody Rhodes with the same body shot, and this week you turn around and he wins a match with it. Really shows how devastating that can be, and it's relatable in everybody's mind. Everybody's had the wind knocked out of them at least once. And to see that in action on the screen right there, and is pushed as something to legitimately fear, is something really, really interesting to watch. But you mentioned, it's not just another guy being knocked out by punching him in the face. Enter Jericho versus Harwood. So let's take a look at this one. We're on the road to blood and guts, and the dastardly Pinnacle. They're facing off against the newly faced Inner Circle. The past few weeks, they've just been trying to tear the Inner Circle apart, and we have this face off here. We have Mike Tyson's involvement, getting AEW a whole bunch of press, and I'm sure after what he did tonight, that'll just be twofold. But this match starts off hot again. Jericho taking some tips from his dad, starting off with a bit of a hockey brawl, and that kind of sets the tone for the rest of this match. This match was just dirty and brawling, lots of punches, lots of kicks, rough to watch sometimes. What did you think of Jericho versus Dax with Mike Tyson as the special guest enforcer?
Yeah, I mean, it was sort of the theme of what was to come later in the night, right? When you think about AEW, we know, like, they love their gang warfare, right? Like they gotta have the factions. You gotta, like, that's what they love. And this was one again, but you expected it. I mean, you knew this wasn't just going to be a one-on-one match and no one else was going to get involved. I mean, that's why you have Tyson there, right? Mm-hmm. That's someone who can sort of step in and be the guy that basically he was. I thought the punch was great. Like, it's Mike Tyson, right?
Oh, yeah.
Any punch he throws is going to be great. But I thought it was, one of those that I think I'm going to have a different opinion later when we talk about the main event. But I think in this one, I can understand it because, again, we know what they're building towards, right? Like, we know there's this big match these groups are going to have, in a couple weeks. So I thought it was okay just from that perspective. Again, we never thought this was going to be a technical masterpiece or anything. I think we knew it was going to be more of a brawl type, and that's what we got here. And so I was fine with it. I could get why maybe people say that there was just a lot going on, but you know what? Like, that's AEW, isn't it?
Right.
There's so much going on all the time. And I feel like that's sort of the theme that they built in. And, you and I were laughing about how many people they get on the show. And I remember I think last week, someone put out the tweet or something that had literally the entire number. I don't even remember what the number was. Was it like 70 maybe?
Oh my gosh.
That they got on the show, or maybe that was too high. I don't remember. But like they get people on the show. And I think in this instance, it works because, again, you're building to what's probably going to be a pretty, bloody, violent sort of cage brawl between these two. So yeah, I thought it was good for what it was.
I mean, if you have a name like Blood and Guts and if it's anything but a bloody, violent cage brawl, then I think it's a big marketing mistake on AEW's part. But that remains to be seen. Mike Tyson here, I feel like playing his role to a T. Just the intensity that he brings. You see him on the outside. You see him yank the baseball bat out of Jericho's hands, causing Jericho to get hit by Dax. Then turn around, same thing happens to Dax trying to get a steel chair shot or something of that nature. We really saw the wheels turning inside each of these guys' heads. We saw Dax, he had to kind of lure Jericho over to the ring announcer's booth to hit him with a mic. Jericho, of course, the master manipulator he is, then turns around and just stabs him with a pin or something. I mean, for God's sakes, these guys are ready for blood and guts. They were tearing each other apart, and you can tell that they just wanted to do a dirty brawl leading to this blood and guts, and that's what we got. And you described it as gang warfare in this one. In the main event, AEW went full on like West Side Story. I mean, if we're talking gang warfare. Oh, but before we get to that, we can't miss Christian Cage's involvement in tonight's show. We missed we missed his.
The line of the night is coming right here.
Oh my gosh. Do you want to? I would love to say,
you do
okay.
it. You should do it. You were the first one. Like you couldn't stop laughing. I couldn't either. But it was just that was the best line I think we've ever heard delivered on AEW Dynamite.
Taz is just he's an American treasure. He's a national treasure, and him coming out. We knew that somebody was going to interrupt Christian Cage. Of course, it's going to be Taz or Team Taz coming out. Here's the deal, shitbag. Like, what an opening line! It's
Here's the deal, shitbag. That's just like that is Taz, though, right? Like that's Taz.
It is.
It's so perfect.
And the good thing about Taz is that he doesn't have to follow it up with his own physicality. He has Powerhouse Hobbs and of course Hook. Hook to his side, and Powerhouse Hobbs just comes and he brutalizes Christian, just tears him limb from limb, and I'd be down. I mean, I'm already invested in this Christian versus Team Taz thing. Put Christian in against Hobbs. Put Christian in against Brian Cage, and but the one that I'm really anticipating, the one we're going to see some masterful storytelling, I'm sure, is Ricky Starks versus Christian Cage. I am so excited for that matchup. We have the entire world in front of us here. What are you excited for Christian Cage to do here in AEW?
Well, I mean, like you said, I think it gives you stuff like Ricky Starks, like, right? Like you get those kind of matches against guys like that. And, from all the interviews Christian's done on podcasts and such, he's talked a lot about, Darby Allin, like he can go up down the list and say, these are guys that he's never interacted with some of these guys before. And that's what we talk about. Like when you have these guys like this that, whatever, I think, what's he, 47? I think him and Edge are both 47. You just get different possibilities that you never thought you were going to get. And I think that's the one thing that you can enjoy about this, whether you want to make the argument, AEW's adding too many old guys or whatever you want to say. I understand the argument to an extent, but still, like, it gives you different matches that you never thought you would see. And I think someone like Darby Allin, if they're in the ring with Christian, they're going to learn from him, right? Same thing with Ricky Starks. And so I think that's the biggest part of this is you're getting some fresh sort of matches for Christian, but he's going to help no matter who's in there with him. Like they're going to learn something from him. So I think that's the fun part of having him in there. So
most definitely. And from the looks of it, it looks like this Christian Cage versus Team Taz thing is going to be the direction that we're heading in. It's been emphasized 2 weeks in a row now. And where do you see this going? I feel like it can't go anywhere but leading to Christian Cage on top, because I feel like eventually Christian Cage has to be in the mix with Kenny Omega, with Jon Moxley. I mean, that's how Christian Cage entered AEW. He entered AEW with an exchange with Kenny Omega in the middle of a little Jon Moxley situation going on. So how do you foresee this storyline between Team Taz and Christian moving forward?
Well, as you know, Andy, you know what they say: 2 cages are better than 1. So that's what Taz wants, right? He wants Brian and Christian, long lost brothers. He wants them both on the same team. But yeah, I'm very curious too to see how it plays out. Like this is one we talked about before, right? When we mentioned the Jericho MJF stuff and all that. Like you didn't really know what it was going to look like. Like you're thinking, okay, we know maybe what the endpoints were going to be, but we don't know how it's going to get there. And that's kind of where I'm at on this one. I don't know how they get to the point to where Christian, I don't know. Like I'm very curious. Like this one has me curious, and I say that word all the time. We talk about some of this stuff, and you're kind of wondering where they're going to go in the direction, but I'm at least intrigued, and I think that's a good thing. Is I'm not sure where they're going to go. I'm sure we'll get some sort of development, when Christian and Ricky Starks face off next week. But I am curious to kind of see what they're going to do here, and maybe what the ultimate goal here is too for Christian. In this, I mean, I think it is him getting to work with Ricky Starks, maybe against Brian Cage, Hobbs, all these other guys. So I think it's, as we say, sometimes you feel like eventually you're going to see Christian like involved in the title picture. And I think that's what we said. Like, maybe that is a match with Darby Allin.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even though they're both, they're both, people cheer both of them, but still, like, that's still a very interesting match. And so I think it just gives you a lot of possibilities. So I think, yeah, I'm very interested to see where they go with it. So.
Yeah, I agree. And Blake, I must say I am disappointed. You said two cages are better than one, and you didn't follow that up with a joke about blood and guts. Well, missed opportunity, I'd say.
I'm going to save that for that episode. So I've got my list of running jokes that I use. I don't want to get too many of them until we get to the big shows.
Oh, okay, so, sorry, I didn't mean to step on your future punchline.
Okay.
I apologize.
It's all right. I've got caveman, a lot of caveman written down over here. So a lot of caveman jokes.
Okay. Speaking of Darby Allin, of course we know that Christian Cage wants to fight him. His old friend Matt Hardy is fighting him tonight, and like you said, gang warfare, West Side Story cosplay, hardcore. I mean, so much going on in this match. I almost had to bring out like my show Bible, my AEW show Bible, just to follow along with the amount of storylines that we were seeing in this match. We had crossovers between Lance Archer and Sting. We had I'm having even trouble recalling them just because it's just a smorgasbord of wrestling in my mind right now. So much went on during this match, so much brutality. I mean, it started off, by God, with a springboard into a chair shot, from what I recall. What did you think of Darby Allin versus Matt Hardy? Of course, Darby Allin comes out on top, but it was a hard-fought battle with a lot of crossed wires throughout the entirety of it.
Yeah, I'll be honest. Like, I can't say that I just completely love this, because there was just so much going on. And we laugh about that because I think, again, what you're getting at this point, right? Like, Matt Hardy, once again, like, he has his own faction. Are they really going to come out with Matt Hardy having a shot at the title and not get involved? Of course not. Like, they're going to get involved somehow. That's the expectation when you have so many of these factions, is that's what they're there for. Like, is his help just going to go, in the back and hang out with the caveman? No. Like, they're going to be out there having a chance to, impact this match some way. So I understand that reasoning, but I also think sometimes because you have so many of these factions that you almost feel compelled to have to use them, because that's part of the story. It's like you have to use them in these matches, and I think it takes away a little bit from it. But look, was it entertaining? Of course it was entertaining. Like, all Darby Allin stuff, like the whole, like the match part of it was entertaining. Like the actual Matt Hardy versus Darby Allin, like, it was pretty entertaining. And then you just have the other stuff that kind of runs in the middle of it. And I think, overbooked, absolutely. Like, it's just so much going on. But I still thought it was pretty entertaining for what it was. Again, I can't say I absolutely loved it because I just thought there was way too much happening at times. And it really took away from the actual, and you said it, Andy, right? Like, JR had to bring up, he was like, reminder, this is a championship match. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. I forgot. I forgot they were having a match here with Sting's in, doing a double clothesline on Private Party. And so yeah, I think that's the one thing I would certainly nitpick with it, is to say there was a lot happening in the middle of a championship match. Jericho, Dax, that's a little different, right? Because it's not a title match. It's not like this big main event that you're building, even though Tyson's in there, and you're going to get some kind of shenanigans. But I don't know. Like, I understand why they did it. Sting coming to Darby Allin's aid. It all makes sense from a storyline standpoint. I just think sometimes, a lot of that on the same show can be a little much. And I think especially when you talk about it like in a title match, right? Mm-hmm. That's the one thing. But again, was it entertaining? Of course it was.
Yeah, most definitely. A lot going on in this match, and a lot going on throughout this entire show. I mean, it makes you take a step back and think, Wait, Eddie Kingston was nowhere on this show. John
Yeah.
Moxley was nowhere on this show. Kenny Omega was only there to say a few words during a promo. Hangman was there to make a brief experience to make a brief cameo during Johnny Hungy's little rehab stint or with his arm
Johnny
there. But yeah, so much going on throughout this show, and four major superstars right there. Possibly, some would argue the four biggest superstars in the brand, or the four most popular ones currently. Were nowhere even on the show, and I must say I didn't miss them. Did you feel a hole in your heart without the Eddie Kingston promo this week, without the John Moxley promo? I mean, a lot was going
You
on.
always do, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like this, you still had so much going on. It's like, I mean, at some point you only have 2 hours to fill. And that's where I think, like with AEW now that they have Dark Elevation and Dark and, all this other stuff, like they've got a lot of hours to fill each week. And, but still, your main prize, your main show, you still only got 2 hours. And as we say, they somehow find a way to get 50 plus people on the show in those 2 hours, but it's not always easy to get everyone. So
Yeah, and even though Eddie Kingston may not be my wrestler of the week this week, I'd say my wrestler of the week, I'd say it was probably Miss Jade Cargill. Very very impressive. She's made her way through the ranks very quickly. Britt Baker wants to get her winning streak up. I'd say maybe she's going to cross paths with Jade Cargill because she's heading in the same direction. I'd say. Who would you say is your wrestler of the week?
Yeah, that's a good choice with Jade. I think I would have probably put her. I think I would have went with probably second for her. But you know where I'm going. Ray Phoenix. He's number one for me. I think he's, one of the best in the world right now. And as I said, I just think that there's no one on this planet that can do what this guy does in the ring. So Ray Phoenix, still the one and only number one choice for me.
Ray Phoenix, can't disagree with that. Will that match also double as your diamond of the week? Is what many people want to know. Is what the thousands and thousands of viewers want to know.
I think so. I think that's the choice. But I am with you. I probably, Jade she would have had a pretty good case too. Maybe I should make Jade my diamond of the week because I made Ray Phoenix my, wrestler of the week. So maybe I should go with Jade for the diamond of the week because as I said earlier, she's just getting so much better. And that's not to say she was terrible when she started. Again, we have to remember it's the evolution of a worker and a character in this business. And, she's just, I think she's just getting better and better. So I'll give her the diamond of the week.
Yeah, if Jade's your diamond of the week, then I'd say my diamond of the week. My favorite moment, it has to be...
I know where you're going.
It has to be, here's the deal, shitbag. It just, It tickled me. It caught me off guard. I had to take off my headphones while I was listening just because the amount I was laughing was making me sweat a bit. I was just getting really worked up over that line. But yeah, it did it for me. And of course, whenever there's a diamond, there has to be a dud. This is an increasingly difficult decision every week we watch AEW Dynamite. Not a lot of duds on this show. If you had to narrow it down to one, what would you go with?
All right, here you go. I'm going to give you this, and to be honest with you, I don't even know if this is my dud, but we forgot to mention it earlier.
Let's hear it.
What about Matt Jackson cosplaying as 1996 Shawn Michaels or 97 Shawn Michaels? In that in the interview they did in the parking lot with Omega and Callis and the Good Brothers and all that. There you go. I don't even think that's my dud of the week, but we forgot to mention that, so let's put it in there. Matt Jackson, your 2021 edition of Shawn Michaels.
What a guy! He had the cross earring. He had the what's that hat?
Yep,
is it a leather beret? What's that hat?
Everything.
I have no clue.
I don't know. I don't even know what they call it, but he had the full look. Like I'm thinking of, what was it? I want to say the visual I'm thinking of is Shawn with Pamela Anderson, coming down for WrestleMania or whatever it was. Like that's the visual I'm seeing there.
Looking like one of the
Matt
Village
Jackson,
people, just coming down with his chaps and But yeah, maybe that's another aspect of their heel characters, really leaning into the DX NWO cosplay that everyone always accuses them of. Whether that continues on in the future, that remains to be seen. But what we do know is that next week we have a huge women's title match. We have Ty Conti versus Sheeta to see who's going to walk out with the gold. Are we going to be back here on Dissecting Dynamite? No, not next week, but we'll be back the week after. Who knows what's going on? I'm sure it's going to be a great show. It's always a great show. Before we say goodbye, Blake, do you have anything that you'd like to plug?
No, I mean, check out all the great stuff we have over at 411mania.com. Yeah, we've got a lot of exciting stuff. Of course, you can read all our reviews, all of our news, and we've got some fun columns we've got up there as well. So, yeah, check everything out. And by the way, Andy, as I told you, the 411 on Wrestling podcast on its way back from hiatus. So you can be sure to subscribe to that, and we'll have a new episode coming up for you this week. So.
All right, thank you. And I'm trying to think if I have anything to plug right now. I don't think I do, so I'm going to say if you haven't seen WrestleMania on Peacock TV, I mean, you don't really got to watch it now. You've probably been spoiled already, so go ahead and skip it. We'll see you in a couple weeks, everyone.